Hello and good morning. I welcome you to the morning meeting today on Monday, the 22nd of January 2018. This is Jens Klatt speaking and exclusively presenting this format to you here for JFD Brokers. We want to have a look at the markets and the market opening into the week. Euro started stronger, gave back most of those gains the late Sunday evening, respectively early Monday morning. It's making back all those gains again. So you might have seen that the euro opened around 50 pips around the close from Friday. Main reason for that is that in fact the Social Democrats here in Germany found a solution in terms of their coalition talks with the Christian Democrats, and so far everything seems to go in one direction with the Grand Coalition. Another one. It was a very, very close decision, in fact, and if you carefully watch at how the euro opened here, let's have a look at the 50-minute time frame. So if you carefully watch here, then you can only imagine, and I mean most of this probably was priced in, since such a surprise was not likely to happen. In fact, you only can imagine what would have happened if there was a no. And in fact, one thing I'd like to give you here on the way. So right now everything seems to be fine, but what the Social Democrats and Christian Democrats now have to do is to sit together, work out a contract on this coalition, and then the whole Social Democratic Party has to vote for this a coalition for contract. So not the whole. In fact, it will be a democratic decision, meaning that if more than 50% vote for the contract, well, it will finally pass, and there will be such a coalition. But, and this is the thing, yesterday it became quite obvious that the whole party here is it's nearly a 50-50. It was a 50-50 decision. So around 56% of the Social Democrats said, yes, let's start those coalition talks. And even though some of you might not really not surprised, another word for this, Probably some of you might think or wonder, why is this such a big deal? Well, the thing is that from a political perspective, we are still talking about the biggest economy in Europe here, and so with these developments here taking place in Germany, it's not as, let's say, drastic or radical as, for example, in France with the right-wing Front National, for example, or in the Netherlands. But still, it's you can definitely feel that people are start to get really frustrated about all these developments. It's not that I'm frustrated myself, but it's like, well, you can't stand it anymore. Let's put it that way. It's really difficult to listen to these political speeches, and then all this, oh, everything is great and everyone knows that it's not the truth, and it's only to catch attention and to probably get some votes here, get some votes there, because it's everywhere. It's really close. You can see many people being really skeptical about Chancellor Merkel and her style of leading this country. And with these developments, you can only imagine what it will look like if now also in Germany the political landscape, let's say, starts to dramatically diversify here, and this is something which is definitely also a problem here in the euro, because currently this speculation, what we get to see here, this push higher, especially here from 12th of January onwards, the push higher was mainly based on that everything will be fine. And so far, I have to say, let's put it that way. So even though I give some more details here, I don't think it's necessary, especially from a short-term trading perspective, because the thing is that all in all, political markets here in this case have very short legs again, meaning nothing big will happen here within the next week. So all we will focus on in the upcoming days is that what will the ECB deliver on Thursday. But also here, the thing is that we have a very, very strong euro. From the start of the year, euro gained more than 3% against the US dollar, something many ECB officials already mentioned as being a problem, especially in terms of reaching the inflation target of 2% here in the near to midterm. And with this in mind, we have to say, well, probably chances are quite high that Mario Draghi will give it a try at least on Thursday to somehow down talk the euro. And especially when focusing here on the current quite crowded euro long position, especially in the commitment of traders report, well, we have to say that the chances are high that Thursday could be a quite volatile trading day, and that the euro probably has not so much more potential on the upside. So I'm a little skeptical, even though if this momentum continues here, and especially today, so I have to say that the current push higher here in the Euro USD, so push higher from these lows from last Friday, respectively from these overnight lows, that this push higher here is mainly driven by US dollar weakness. If this US dollar weakness continues and we are not making it below these lows here in the upcoming days, 22.15 respectively, the lows here from Friday, pushing then towards the regional 120.80 respectively 121 here. But in fact, probably US dollar keeps on falling and pushing lower, then there's probably also a chance given that if Draghi doesn't deliver anything at all, not necessarily he does not need to deliver anything at all, to be honest, could be that the euro keeps on pushing higher and it's probably pushing towards 125 here. Nevertheless, again, we are very elevated at the very elevated level. We know that most ECB officials consider this euro strength to be a problem. So in fact, the upcoming days, at least till Thursday, could be quite unspectacular, if volatile, and we get to see some trading action between 122, 123, and then on Thursday, bigger action could be delivered, especially if Draghi really starts such a down talk. Where he tries to down talk the euro. This could then mean that the euro probably sees some bigger long covering, let's call it, and market participants are pushing then euro significantly lower. So probably the upcoming days are not that spectacular. Nevertheless, into the weekly close, it could get us some nice volatility probably if Draghi really tries to push the euro somehow lower. By the way, this euro strength here probably is also one reason why the DAX currently is giving back some of the gains he has seen on Friday, even though, by the way, let's go over here to the daily chart, even though I have to admit that it's probably a little difficult now to say, oh, wow, this is euro strength here, since we know that based on these correlation talks, irrespectively, not this correlation talks, but this happening, this event here around the Social Democracy in Germany over the weekend, we have seen, first of all, the DAX probably being bid and pushing higher. It's very difficult to spot one good reason for this really big green candle, a power candle happening here on Friday, and on top of that, seeing the euro pushing higher up to 123, something like that. We came short in, I think, below that level, and then pushed significantly, pushed lower, drifted lower into the weekly close here. Even though we have to say that such a strong DAX, which is still trading we're having the all-time high in sight, while the euro is stabilizing at the highest levels since December 2014. It's difficult to see or to find good reasons here to argue for a strong DAX, even though the euro is so strong. So usually we have a negative correlation between those two. If one's trading higher, you should see other trading lower, and the other way around. And nevertheless, it's very, very strong. And I think these correlation talks are one main driver here. And so difficult to now argue that the euro is strong and that's why the DAX is probably losing some of its ground. Probably it's just some small profit taking, whatever. into the weekly start. What I want to say is that I consider this to be, first of all, a really strong day from last Friday, and I think chances are very good that the DAX has some further potential on the upside. Probably, especially if the euro now gives back some of these gains over the last hours, which had probably held the DAX back from pushing towards 13,500 and the region around the all-time highs. I consider chances to be definitely given, depending a little on how strong US equities come in. We'll have a look at the Dow Jones here, and I want to say that the Dow Jones at least gives you doubts whether there's so much more potential on the upside, even though on the other hand, mainly based on the volatility index, nevertheless the DAX was capable of pushing higher on Friday, and it did not need the support from the Dow Jones here. So, well, probably that's the same thing today then too. And again, let's just see. So I have to say, and that's something I mentioned quite clearly in the morning, I'm definitely not long. I'm definitely not short. So when I take a position in the DAX, I definitely take the long side. I don't consider chances to be so good that the DAX can really take on momentum on the downside. And this is currently something we could see here. We can see here. Market pushed slightly lower, nevertheless stabilizes above 13,400 points. If we're now making it back above 13,440 here, which is this turquoise line, this is the spot open respectively here, the moving average 50, exponential moving average 50 on a 5-minute time frame. If we make it above that level, there's a good chance that we get to see at least another push towards these daily highs. And if we can make it above these levels, and probably US equities start the week slightly higher, currently very unspectacular here, probably the VIX, the volatility index, which is giving me exactly these second thoughts here and these doubts whether there's so much more potential. Seeing the S&P and Dow Jones trading within their all-time highs and pushing towards new all-time highs, while the VIX in this case is ticking higher, it's definitely a sign which is not a positive one, and that usually one which really, if you want, it screams be careful, because volatility could pick up rather sooner or later, which is usually to be expected to see some pullbacks here in equities then. Nevertheless, again, if the VIX does not tick higher here, and in fact the Dow Jones keeps on ticking higher, the S&P keeps on ticking higher, there's no real reason not to believe that probably the DAX has some room on the upside, probably pushing then towards 13,500, 13,530 points towards the all-time highs within the next hours. And then let's see how things develop from here. Currently, market seems to be quite unspectacular, mainly due to the fact that the main event of the week, the ECB, takes place here on Thursday, and that's one of the reasons why we should definitely be a little careful and not expect too much here from the markets. Even though, based on this, we should more expect the market to take on the momentum from last Friday, which in the DAX is clearly be seen on the upside, and based on the small drop in the euro, more on the downside than the other way around. Yeah, that's it on the DAX and on the Euro USD. I think definitely worth watching is the development here in crude oil, not necessarily on a daily chart, but on the 4-hour chart. So one sec, where is it here? Oh, okay, it's daily. No, that's not good. So this is a 4-hour chart, and what I'd like to show you here is the following. The market seems to have some trouble to make higher highs, and some might probably spot potential reversal pattern or reverse pattern here, head shoulder formation, saying with this structure of falling highs and falling lows, here the market is probably already showing that it's likely that there will be another push towards and below 63, and if we make it below that level, next target can be found here around 62 probably. And so that's definitely something which is very important to watch at here, I think. So it doesn't look as if WTI has so much more potential right now on the upside. It's more likely to see a corrective move. It's also that we have nearly 700,000 contracts net long exposure, Commitment of Traders report, which were published on last Friday. So with this in mind, market is very, very crowded on the long side. So the thing is that with this structure here developing, probably market already shows, indicates that we are about to see probably lower prices in oil in the near term, at least a quite significant push towards 63 here. And if we make it below that level, I think another $1 per barrel down towards 62 is definitely given the chances to get to see such a push lower. Nevertheless, the overall picture is still very bullish, and even if we push lower here, and even if it's probably more aggressive and we go down to 60, it doesn't mean that the overall picture changes. So, and in fact, such a push down towards 60, even though it might be lower, 58, 80, 59 here towards these highs from November, this is a potential long trigger from which we could get to see another push higher, another leg higher, and probably it's very welcome, such a push lower, since we're talking about a push towards these levels, and WTI crude oil giving back 4 or 5 USD per barrel, which could already start a reduction of the very aggressive long exposure here, and normalize, let's say, the current market conditions. A sentiment extreme would be reduced here, and then from here we have another quite good chance to get to see a higher push, probably up towards 70 here. Also very interesting to note, definitely, the Japanese yen. So have a look here at dollar Japanese yen. All in all, the picture is not very spectacular. Nevertheless, to me, dollar Japanese yen is very interesting, since I have now a close look at, for example, CAD Japanese yen over the last 23 years and 20 years, yes. CAD yen traded higher within the time span from the 23rd of January till the 13th of February. So it's a seasonal pattern around the corner, and we're trading in a very interesting region, I think, after the market is or pushed higher into the yearly market opening, let's say, yeah. We came back, mainly driven by the fact that the Bank of Japan bought less bonds here. They reduced the size by only 10 billion Japanese yen, even though it was a reduction which was, I'm sorry, 10 billion, no, it's 10 billion Japanese yen. It's not 10 million but billion, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so in fact that's something which is definitely interesting to watch in terms of the rhetoric used by the Bank of Japan in their statement tomorrow. If they come out and hint somewhere to a taper in the near term, a reduction of their asset purchases for whatever reason, and without giving more details on how to what's the word for this? It's not stabilization, but it's more like to offset this. Let's say offset by saying, okay, we reduce our asset purchases in terms of bonds, but we increase our asset purchases in terms of ETFs here in the stock market, whatever. This is something, I mean, this could definitely drive Japanese yen higher on a broad scale, meaning could drive CAD yen lower. If they are not coming out with such a statement, I'm probably about then to really prepare myself for a long position in CAD yen in this pattern, even though I have to say, based on my doubts and based on the fact that I still consider the market environment to be very, very extended on the upside in US equities, and a corrective move probably to be likely, especially because the VIX ticks higher. I have to say that probably it's the best then, and now I went down to the 4-hour chart here, probably to wait for the long engagements CAD Japanese yen till we make it back above 89.60 here. So this region around these highs from last week. So currently I'm a little skeptical. I'm not that confident that we really can take off from here, but would be willing to take a CAD yen long here then for the seasonal pattern once we make it above 89.60. And consider this then to be a potential bottom which was formed here, even though this is definitely something which I say, or where I say, hey, this is something I still want to wait for. A clear confirmation that CAD yen has probably seen its short-term bottom here in this case. After market pushed already aggressively higher into the yearly start, nevertheless came lower than based on these developments around the BOJ. And probably after the rate hike of the Bank of Canada last week, the Bank of Japan delivers another reason here to then go for such a long position and a carry, such a carry trade long position then here kept against the Japanese yen. And so in fact, yeah, that's it from my end. So let's just see how things develop here in the DAX. So DAX can now stabilize a little. Let's see whether we make it back above the turquoise line. All in all, market environment is very, very volatile. Also one good reason not to be too aggressive in terms of short engagements. Let's just see whether we can probably make it up to these highs again, probably push towards the all-time highs. And let's see how the developments here in the euro continue. Currently, not sure whether this is really euro strength here in the last hours of trading, or it's more like US dollar weakness, especially when looking at other markets like Australian dollar, starting also very strong against the US dollar into the week here. You can see this. We can see British pound be stronger and be bid against the greenback. You can see Japanese yen still green for the day, dollar Japanese yen, nevertheless giving back most of its gains here overnight. You can see that from here. So we opened lower here too, made back those losses, and are now trading lower. So not really sure. It's more like US dollar weakness than really euro strength. Probably if the US dollar can somehow stabilize, that's also potential driver then for the DAX. Nevertheless, don't be too excited. We are all waiting for the ECB in 3 days. So on Thursday, probably we won't get to see much action till then. And that's it from my end. Happy trading. Watch your stops. Talk to you again then tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. GMT. I definitely look forward to it. I wish you, happy trading. And talk to you again tomorrow. Take care. See you and